In the early summer of 2020, Jamie Stevenson was taking advantage of the lifting of lockdown restrictions to meet associates outside a four-star Glasgow hotel. They were sitting at a picnic table when they heard shouts and the screech of tyres. Men in plain clothes were moving rapidly towards the group in a threatening manner. Stevenson, a notorious crime figure in the Scottish underworld for decades, had reputedly been the target of numerous attempts on his life, took to his heels. He ran 100 yards before stumbling down a steep grass slope and falling onto a path where his pursuers brought his flight to a halt. His captors turned out to be officers from the National Crime Agency, bringing him in connection with the discovery of a street Valium factory in a small town in the south of England. It could have been the start of another stint in prison for the seasoned criminal. He had only been released in 2014, having gained early release from a 12-year sentence for laundering over £1 million in dirty money. However, Stevenson had no intention of returning to prison, nor normal civilian life. What followed was a remarkable game of cat and mouse, a story spanning from Ecuador to Alicante, and wouldn't have been out of place in a blockbuster movie. You are watching OCG TV. We would like to thank our loyal audience for supporting us to make it to 60,000 subscribers. We hope you enjoyed the video and continue to support our channel. Please subscribe if you haven't already. It's free and it means you will be alerted as soon as we upload a new video. Chapter 1. The Plan. Block End Fruit Market, a bleak warehouse situated adjacent to Glasgow's Alexandra Park and overshadowed by the bustling M8 motorway that links the city to Edinburgh, serves as a significant distribution hub for fresh fruits and vegetables in Scotland, as well as the nation's sole inland fish market. Each morning at 3 a.m, amidst the cold Scottish air and under bright floodlights, vendors prepare their stalls. For nearly 4 decades, David Bilsland was a prominent figure on the market floor, managing deliveries and negotiating transactions. However, at the ripe old age of 67, Bilsland was concealing a troubling secret. He had begun to embark on a path toward a career in organised crime. The fruit merchant had attracted the attention of detectives for some time due to intelligence suggesting his connections to the underworld. Interest in Bilsland intensified in 2019 when he attempted to enter the banana market, initiating discussions with entrepreneurs from Ecuador, the leading global exporter of the fruit and a neighbouring country to the significant cocaine-producing nations of Colombia and Peru. The expenses associated with banana production have risen due to the challenges posed by extreme weather, which complicates the ability to achieve consistent yields annually. However, consumers have grown accustomed to the low prices of bananas. Consequently, numerous supermarkets employ this fruit as a loss leader, accepting financial losses on bananas with the expectation that customers will purchase additional items during their visit. So it was strange that an independent retailer operating out of a Glasgow market warehouse would choose to stake his business on the banana trade. A few days prior to Valentine's Day in 2020, Bilsland arranged a flight to Alicante in Spain. With return flights scheduled for the same day and without any luggage, British authorities were suspicious and requested that their Spanish counterparts monitor his activities closely. The Spanish carried out surveillance on Bilsland that led them to the 4-star Melia Hotel, where he met an unknown man for coffee. They took photos of the pair and sent them back to Scotland, where Police Scotland were stunned to see the man Bilsland had arranged to meet was none other than Jamie Stevenson. The image of the unmistakable career criminal revealed the astonishing level of criminality Bilsland had got involved in and added rocket fuel to the investigation. Bilsland began arranging clean and legit shipments of bananas to his Glasgow unit to normalise the trade route. The gang thought that border agencies would initially take an interest in new shipments and then over time reduce their checks, at which point contraband-laden packages could be added to the haul. Between May and September 2020, Bilsland would import one shipment of bananas every week. He knew the authorities might be suspicious at first, so no drugs were concealed in the first few deliveries. In each shipment, there were about 35 containers. Each container was made up of 24 pallets and could cost anywhere from £3,000 to £5,000, meaning a considerable £175,000 was spent on bananas per delivery. The money would be fronted up by Stevenson, and because there was no need to sell the bananas, often Bilsland would just dump the produce, filling multiple skips outside the premises. It wouldn't be until shipment number 18 when Stevenson would give the green light. It would turn out to be one of the biggest mistakes he would ever make. Chapter 2: Double Trouble. It has been well documented that in April of 2020, French authorities hacked into EncroChat, the largest encrypted online platform favoured by criminals. That gave Police Scotland the ability to look directly into the communications within the underworld. They were given 50,000 lines of raw data by their European counterparts. In amongst this vast swathe of information, message, pictures and videos lay further evidence of Stevenson's vast drugs empire. Messages revealed his involvement in an industrial-scale street Valium factory in Rochester, Kent, that was being managed by associates Jerry Carbin and Paul Bowes. The operation could produce 258,000 etizolam tablets an hour. When the operation was uncovered, an incredible 28 million pills were found at the site in Rochester, with the entire supply due to be shipped north to Glasgow. Etizolam, which is sometimes known as street Valium, first appeared in drug death figures for Scotland in 2012, when it was associated with just one death. By 2019, it was responsible for 752 deaths, well over half of all drug deaths in Scotland that year. Stevenson's bad luck at this point was considerable. Detectives were now coming at him from two angles. The infamous EncroChat hack had led police to the Valium factory, purposely tucked away in the south of England to supposedly add an extra layer of security. Two teams from the NCA then carried out a joint operation that saw them bust the factory on June 12, 2020, at the exact same time they arrested Stevenson, who was by then back in Glasgow. Intel led the officers to the Sherbrooke Castle Hotel, a grand hotel in a quiet area in Pollokshields, where Stevenson was meeting with friends, sitting at a picnic table in the hotel grounds. When Stevenson saw that he was being approached, at pace, by two men in plain clothes, he took off, thinking it may have been a pair of hitmen sent to take him out. He was said to be relieved when he realised he was only being arrested, not murdered. He had, however, made a grave error, in his haste to get away, leaving his EncroChat phone unattended, which was gleefully received by his captors. Stevenson was then transferred to Carlisle. Since the etizolam factory had been discovered south of the border, he was to be charged in England. Despite the strong evidence, he was not seen as the same level of threat as in Scotland, and the decision was made that there was not enough evidence to hold him. Stevenson wouldn't stick around long and quickly left the country to Spain and onward to the Netherlands. Meanwhile, with the EncroChat phone in their possession, officers were finally able to decrypt the real identities of the criminal enterprise. David Bilsland was given the code name Trendy Mutant, while Stevenson was known as both Big Tasty or Severe Ale. There was another member of the gang that until that point had been unknown to police, who went by the handle Shaggy Goat. He was identified as Lloyd Cross, owner of a vehicle recovery firm in Glasgow. He acted as the link between Bilsland and Stevenson, ensuring cash was moved from location A to B. Stevenson was unaware that EncroChat had been compromised and carried on with the plan regardless. One can only imagine the decision that had to be made in that moment, having already been caught for one major crime and the pressure to continue with another. He pressed ahead, and in September 2020, a ton of cocaine hidden in 119 foil packages worth an estimated £100 million was sent to Dover, hidden in boxes of bananas for onward delivery to Glasgow fruit market. Police then raided David Bilsland's premises, bringing down Bilsland's world as he knew it. He later confided in a colleague, Andrew Wilson, after having paid him £3,000 in cash to fit a banana ripening machine to bring credibility to the gang's plan. Mr. Wilson was later quoted as saying to police, "He said to me, 'Have you seen the news?' He was looking terrible. He looked as if he had seen a ghost and was a broken man. He said he had done something stupid and had put his hands up to it and was going to jail for a long time. He looked as if he was about to start crying. He said he hadn't been named in the news, but his age was mentioned." Bilsland was later told in court that he was used by Stevenson to provide an appearance of legitimacy to the cocaine operation. In January 2022, the National Crime Agency released a mugshot of Stevenson as one of the UK's 12 most wanted men. At the time, the NCA and Police Scotland said they would not rest until his capture. He would spend almost 18 months on the run until the authorities got their man. Chapter 3: Bad Judgement. Jamie Stevenson is a streetwise and seasoned criminal. However, when the pressure is on, even the most experienced veterans make mistakes and let their guard down. He had successfully walked the fugitive tightrope for a period until he teamed up with another Glaswegian on the run. Dean Ferguson is the son of the infamous Derek Deco Ferguson, who is still one of the UK's most wanted men since 2007, who is wanted in connection with 2 murders. The first, a shooting of a barman named Thomas Cameron, who was shot outside a bar in Bishopbriggs. The second was a man named Billy Bates, whose body was found inside an oil drum in the River Clyde in the summer of 2007. In a bizarre twist, 11 years later in 2018, his nephew, Billy Joe Bates, was killed after an argument with his cousin, Dean Ferguson, became violent. Dean Ferguson then fled to Europe and eventually joined up with Jamie Stevenson. During their time in Holland, Ferguson or an associate took a trip to the red light district in Amsterdam and ended up in one of the city's brothels. In a moment of madness, a bank card provided by Stevenson was used to pay for services, and police back in Scotland got their long-awaited breakthrough. The card was marked for emergencies only by Stevenson to fund a possible escape if the net was closing in quick. But police also had a marker on the card, meaning they would be alerted with a real-time location, date, and time when it was used. Eventually, Stevenson and Ferguson were tracked down to the small southwestern city of Bergen op Zoom. They were picked up by the Dutch when they were out jogging, much to Stevenson's shock. He was extradited to the UK and was put on trial at the High Court in Glasgow along with his 5 co-accused. The 59-year-old faced 14 charges, including smuggling cocaine, supplying azithromycin, and involvement in serious organised crime. He initially denied all the charges. However, to everyone's shock, he then lodged a late special defence, blaming several other people from outside the case for being responsible for the cocaine importation. The twist came on the eve of Stevenson's trial, when Lloyd Cross broke ranks and owned up to his role in the gang's scheme. It sparked a rethink by Stevenson, who tried to deflect blame onto Cross, plus jailed underworld leader, the Don White, and longtime associate, Stephen Jimmy Jameson. It was reported that associates of Stevenson visited White in prison to request his cooperation with the plan. However, the court saw the last-ditch attempt as an act of desperation and found Stevenson guilty, sentencing him to 20 years in prison. At 59 years old, he will spend his 60th birthday behind bars and likely not see freedom until into his 70s. Another unusual aspect of this case to come out in court was the instruction Stevenson gave to 26-year-old Lewis Connor to set fire to his own home after losing it in a proceeds of crime case. Connor staked out the house in Falkirk before setting it alight in May 2020. Leaked EncroChat messages showed the exchanges between Stevenson and Connor. "We'll send someone to take a pic if you want, but place was like Blackpool illuminations when I left. Another message revealed Stevenson wanted CC's salon in Hamilton, Lanarkshire targeted and instructed Connor to put the owner under surveillance. Days after Stevenson's home was set on fire, CC's salon was also gutted by a suspicious blaze. Connor was eventually convicted of conspiring to set other properties and motor vehicles ablaze and was sent to prison for 3 years. When sentencing the rest of the trafficking team, fruit market trader David Bilsland entered a guilty plea to a charge of agreeing to import cocaine. Co-accused Paul Bowes pleaded guilty to being involved in organised crime linked to the production and supply of Class C drug Atizolam at a string of premises including the Nuri Island Resort in Abu Dhabi, in London and in Rochester, Kent. Both were sentenced to 6 years. Lloyd Cross pleaded guilty to involvement in the plot before the trial began and was also given a 6-year sentence. Stevenson's stepson, Gerard Carbin, and co-accused Ryan McPhee admitted being involved in organised crime through the production and supply of Atizolam. Carbin was sentenced to 7 years, while McPhee was given a 4-year prison sentence. Judge Lord Ericht told Stevenson, who was sentenced separately from his co-defendants, "You directed a complex operation for the importation and supply of cocaine. The operation involved cash being provided by you to fund David Bilsland's apparent legitimate business. You used his experience and contacts to provide an appearance of legitimacy. You removed Bilsland as a director of Glasgow Fruit Market and registered in his place a vulnerable man who allowed his signature and identification to be used while he knew nothing. You also played a leading role in a complex operation of manufacturing and distribution of Atizolam tablets. This operation included a manufacturing facility in Rochester, which, when police raided, seized 13.5 million tablets with a wholesale value of £400,000. I am satisfied the total period of imprisonment is fair and proportionate.